Hello, Booktube. Welcome to my first tag video ever, which will, of course, be the Booktube Newbie Tag. And even though I've had this channel for like a year, I feel like I can do this tag because I don't have that many subscribers, and I didn't actually make this channel with the intention of making a Booktube channel, but more on that later. I didn't always love reading. Growing up, Harry Potter, good. Aragon, good. But I was definitely not a big reader. I played sports, which may make me sound cool. And I was definitely not cool in high school and middle school. But yeah, and then, I went to college and I read because I'm in college. And later in college, I got into the Star Wars expanded universe, the old expanded universe, pre-Disney. We're talking Thrawn series, the original Thrawn series, Bane series, Darth Plagueis, all, from what I remember, phenomenal. Now, I have to say this because people get super triggered when you bring up politics in the middle of a non-political video, but it's relevant to my kind of story on how I've come to love reading. I graduated in 2015. The 2016 U.S. election obviously happened a year after I graduated, basically, here in the United States, and I started following politics very closely, and I would read long-form articles, I would read the news, I would listen to podcasts, I would read some books, and yeah, I've kept up with politics since then. And then over the next few years, I would get into kind of things like George Orwell, kind of on the bubble of political, but obviously it's dystopian and not political. I've read The Handmaid's Tale. I read some other dystopian stuff. I reread Aragon. I reread the Bane series. I was kind of all over the place, as you can tell. I kept reading political stuff. But yeah, then I started my channel in 2019. And at this point, I definitely loved reading. I read to learn and I read to be entertained, both. And not necessarily at the same time. Oh, and one other weird side note, I would read rule books. Wait a minute. You may not be able to hear me, but I'm moving you. Ugh. All right. Yep. So you kind of saw part of my board game collection over here. That's actually under half of my board games, which is just, I just have so many. But yeah, so this is Stone Age. This is one of my easier board games, I would say. Here's the rule book. It's obviously length width-wise, it's huge. It's only 7 pages, but I'm a huge board game nerd, so I would read one of these daily. And most of the time it would be bigger than one of these, but yeah, 7-page rule book. Oh, and there's this thing too. So another 2 pages. So yes, the reason I started this channel was basically on a whim. I was in the car with my dad, and my dad and I would talk about various political issues, and we still do. And it was a long car ride, and it was last summer, and we were talking about the Women's World Cup because we're big soccer fans, and there was obviously the pay gap controversy in the United States between the women's team and the men's team, and the women get paid less, and the women are great, and the men are horrible, and the women bring in just as much, if not more money within 4-year periods, at least recently, than the men's national team do. So my dad and I are on the same side on this, basically, of yeah, the women have to get paid equally to the men in a fair society, in a fair system. But as is somewhat common with conversations that involve politics between my dad and I, he kind of stays at that surface level, that yeah, women should get paid equally to the men. And he's on that level, and I'm with him on that level, and then I kind of want to take it up a level. So I remember specifically wanting to talk about how it is a unique labor issue for the women's team. And I used this exact example. I was like, imagine being Alex Morgan, and normally if you or I, or, even like elite athletes like LeBron James are unhappy with their job, they can just go to another job. LeBron James could go to play for the Knicks or whatever and basically get the same amount of money and hopefully get treated better. And I could basically do the same thing at my job. And he didn't really engage with that point of me saying it's a very unique labor issue for Alex Morgan because she can't just like go play for England or go play for Brazil. And like Marta can't go play for the United States. He kind of kept it at that base, it's discriminatory level, which again, I fully agree with. But there were more things going on in that situation, which I was interested in talking about. And we didn't really get to that point in our long car ride. And he brought it back down to the level that we kind of had already discussed. In my view, I thought we had discussed it fairly extensively, particularly like I listened to him and stuff and was very respectful of my elders and whatnot. But yeah, anyway. So normally in that sort of situation, when I feel like I can't talk about some things with my dad, I will go to my mom and talk about the same political thing. I'm like 5 years old. It's like, Dad, can I sleep over Billy's? No. Okay. Mom, can I go sleep over Billy? Like, it's like, I'm like a grown man, and that's the level of my thinking. Also, it's like sunset, so this room's getting... All right, there you go. You guys can see me now. So I went to my mom with this same political issue, and again, my mom and I agree on like the base concept that women should get paid the same, if not more, than the men in this international U.S. soccer situation. But yeah, then I tried to like have this high, like second level discussion with my mom, and I framed it as a critique of capitalism, or at least an oversight of capitalism in this narrow labor issue where elite, talented labor, such as Alex Morgan, can't settle labor disputes by simply going to another company that will treat them better. Like, because again, Alex Morgan can't go play for a different international team because she's not from those countries. All she could do is try to work it out or not play for the U.S. national team if she has a labor issue with the United States Soccer Federation. And obviously my parents are older than I, so, when you get into critiquing capitalism, that sort of like Cold War brain mentality type thing kicks in more with people of that generation than my generation. So what's great about my mom is she'll hear me out, and we can try to be on this level, and we may not 100% agree, but yeah, I got her to agree, and then we looked stuff up. I'm like, there has to be like a name for this, or this sort of labor situation, and it's called a monopsony, which I had heard of, but I didn't apply that term to this labor situation. Not monopoly, monopsony. And it's funny because my mom's always telling me, hey, Greg, you love board games. You should make a board game. And like, that was like perfectly set up. Like, Greg, you should make a board game called Monopsony. But yeah, I digress. This is a great side rant, and I promise I'm going to talk about how I've started my channel eventually. But yeah, sometimes if I feel like talking about a subject, I will write an article about it. And I've done this on a few occasions, and I never like publish the article anywhere. I just sort of like sit on it because, if you've ever written anything, you're like self-conscious about it, or I am at least. I don't know if you guys are, and it's like, man, it like makes it more personal. Like, you want to talk about an issue, but you don't want to talk about like how you wrote about the issue is, or I don't know, it's like weird. But then I'm like, hey, why don't I just like turn a camera on and talk about the issue? And then I literally cut and pasted the article and put it in the comment section of that video. And that was my first video. It's an unedited like 15-minute video about me talking about like a monopsony being a labor issue within the context of the United States Soccer Federation paying the women equally to the men. And like, yeah, I'll cut and paste the article and put it down below if you guys want to read it. It's very short. It's unedited, not peer-reviewed at all, but, you know, there it is. Also, I would not recommend watching that video because, again, it's unedited and I say a lot and I'm super awkward. And I'm pretty awkward in this video too, and I say a lot, but at least I'm cutting out the parts where I say a lot. And as for my awkwardness, I don't know. I feel like I come across as like relatable, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. I have like 3 subscribers, so so maybe I'm not that relatable. But anyway. But yeah, around that time, I was reading more. I had read the first 3 books of the Lightbringer series at that point, which is phenomenal. And I got more into fantasy reading. Now I'm reading in the Mistborn series, which is great. So yeah, most of what I do now is, as you can tell from, you know, my videos recently, I've been talking mostly about fantasy books, I would say. Although I do talk about political stuff, and I don't really mix the two. I won't be like doing a review of Mistborn and be like, the treatment of the ska reminds me of like Pol Pot's treatment of in the Cambodian genocide, you know? Like that's not that's not like how I review fantasy books. I keep them pretty darn separate. So if you're worried about that, don't be. And if you're in the fantasy world, I would recommend listening to some of my political book reviews. I'll have a review about No Logo pretty soon by Naomi Klein. She's a great writer. You should check her out. My Manufacturing Consent review actually has like quite a few views randomly. I don't know how that happened. That one's by Noam Chomsky, who's also a great writer. And the same goes vice versa too. If you like see my Noam Chomsky video and want to get more into fantasy, like I would suggest Brandon Sanderson. But yeah, I just love reading. Reading political stuff just educates me, which is great. Reading fantasy takes my mind off like the horrifying political stuff that I just read. I haven't really been reading these, but I've kind of answered most of them. But yeah, this one, challenges. What challenges do you think starting a Booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? I don't know. I'm definitely not like this sort of social media guru or whatever. I sometimes feel like after I do a video or whatever, or as I'm editing, I think the biggest challenge is like editing, listening to yourself and being like, man, I said like it's just weird to listen to yourself. There's been a few reviews where I'm just like, no, like I'm not gonna post this, and I like almost can't even explain why. Like I like did a Hunger Games review and I like stopped editing it halfway through because it's like kind of self-conscious, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's the best word to describe how I'm feeling about like these reviews. I don't post, but you know, overall I'm just like, I think I'm just overcoming it naturally just by doing more reviews, talking more. Talking about politics is awkward too because, you know, like on those first videos where I'm talking about the gender pay gap, it's just like weird because I'm like talking about like very specific critiques of capitalism, and like people will comment and be like it'll be like anti-feminist or like men's rights activists being like, yo, you should check out like this like Australian like low-level politician who got like destroyed on national TV about the gender pay gap. And I'm like, what are you saying? Like, Did you watch the video? Like, what is this at? And like, oh my God. And it's weird because when those comments arise, I like respond to them and have no problem responding to them. So like, that's not where like my self-consciousness is coming from. It's just like, I don't know, editing, I guess. Just hearing my own voice just makes, I don't know. It's just like weird and difficult for me. Maybe I should go back to doing unedited videos. Oh my God. No one wants to hear that. But yeah, this is fun. Normally I don't talk about myself in videos. It's led to me doing quite a bit of awkward giggling in a room by myself. I'm not crazy, I swear. But yeah, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. I don't really care about subs. I'm just having fun making videos overall, I would say, even though I brought up that I'm like self-conscious about hearing myself talk. Overall, I'm having a great time. But like, this video in particular is definitely more weird because I'm talking about myself. But like, if I'm talking about like, I keep picking up Mistborn because it's like right next to me. But if I'm talking about Mistborn, it's just easier to not talk about yourself, or it's less awkward, certainly. But yeah, if you're like a fellow booktuber and you comment on this video, I will check out your channel. I do not have like a following and I have like enough free time on my hands where I can listen to things in the background while I do other things. So, because I've got like my second monitor over here, so I'll check you out if you comment. And yeah, thanks for watching. Tell me what you guys think. Political YouTube intersecting with booktube. Good idea, bad idea. It's actually been happening more naturally with the Black Lives Matter protests, and obviously full solidarity to Black Lives Matter protest. This lip service that I'm doing is obviously not enough. We definitely need the protests. Like the George Floyd murder was just horrible, and we keep seeing more cases of police brutality against people who are protesting against police brutality. Go figure. So that's mind-boggling. Also, I mean, I think we need to kind of reimagine our society in such a way where we don't have the police solving all these problems that they are not super well equipped to solve, such as homelessness. Like, what's a cop gonna do? Like, it's like, move it along. Like, what? Like, this dude's homeless. Get him a home. There's actually a study on this too, that it's cheaper for society to give people like this really extremely bare bones apartment compared to having people be homeless, because it's like taxing on society. Every time someone sees a homeless person sleeping somewhere that they don't like, they call the police. That drains society in terms of money. And then they have court dates, and then they miss court dates, and sometimes they're in and out of jail. And like, have putting someone in like a cell with a guard is more expensive than putting them in like a very small apartment with no guard. That should make sense to everyone. But that's like one of the things that police are asked to solve, that they, like, a different organization could solve that problem better than the police. And this is no disrespect to the police generally. It's just that they have like 21 weeks of training or something. They can't be equipped for everything in 21 weeks, right? So I know I'm going off the rails, and usually I cut things like this out of my videos if I like randomly were to go on a political rant in a Mistborn review. But I did have like a political trigger warning for this video, and the Black Lives Matter protests are super important, so I'm definitely making an exception and kind of talking politics in a video that isn't like super politics. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I should make like a separate video about that. But yeah, I mean, I'll bring it back. What do you guys think about like a booktuber who kind of talks about politics in some videos and talks about books in other videos? And what do you political people think about me talking about fantasy books? What do you political people think about fantasy books in general? This will probably get more traction within the booktube community though, because I'm going to use the, tag or whatever. Again, my guess is probably that it'll be like a lot of small booktubers watching this and a lot of new booktubers, and I'd love to check out your channel, so comment. Yeah. And I mean, we can talk about anything too. I'm like down to talk about like editing. If you think my editing sucks, like whatever, I'll talk about that. If you think my face looks or like, I don't care. Like you can say whatever you want. I'll link my Twitter too if you want to like DM me for I don't even know why, but this is so awkward. Here's my number, so call me maybe. It's hard to look right at you, baby. Am I hitting on the internet? Just like everyone. Oh my god, I'm so sleep deprived. Oh my god, this is by far my weirdest video. By far. But yeah. I've got to end this. Just end it.